I've definitely gotten behind the wheel of my car, let's say a little drowsy, and my hunch is you likely have too. Most experts tell us that going 24 hours without sleep is like having a blood alcohol level of 0.10. So in other words, driving while you're sleep deprived can give you some of the same effects as driving drunk. But unlike with alcohol, there isn't like a sleep breathalyzer that you can take. You just have to know what signs to look for, and most importantly, what to do when you're aware that you're too tired to drive. So how dangerous is drowsy driving really? Well, according to a study by the AAA, they found that 20% of all fatal car crashes involved some level of driver fatigue. And they also found that your risk of getting in an accident doubles if you only have 5 to 6 hours of sleep. It quadruples if you have between 4 and 5 hours. If you have less than 4 hours of sleep, your chances are 12 times higher. So yeah, drowsy driving doesn't have the stigma of drunk driving and even texting and driving. But maybe it should. Because look, drowsy driving makes you less attentive, it makes you easily distracted, and it slows your reaction time. It just makes it harder to avoid any obstacles or sudden movements on the road. Now, we typically think that drowsy driving happens at night, but I know for me, the times when I've experienced driving drowsy are actually not late nights at all. Instead, it's very early mornings. My kids and I are usually up by 6 a.m. We are out the door for school and work by 6:45. And especially on some of those really dark, cold, wet, and rainy mornings here in the Pacific Northwest, those first few miles of the drive are a very groggy and, dare I say, a very trance-like experience. For some of you, it might not be the mornings or the evenings. It could be driving in the early afternoon when your body just gets naturally tired. And you know what doesn't help? Things like rolling down your window, turning up your music, drinking more coffee, or slapping yourself while you drive. None of those are going to be a replacement for quality sleep. Just no. Obviously, sleep deprivation and drowsy driving go hand in hand, especially if you're taking your kids to school like me before dawn. But there are some other things to be really mindful of too. Sleep disorders might be affecting your sleep just in general. Disorders like sleep apnea often go undiagnosed, and that can lead to excessive drowsy driving. And importantly, some medications can also impair your driving. Prescription sleep aids for sure, but we're also here talking about non-sleep aid meds like antihistamines for allergies or benzodiazepines that you might take for anxiety. Oh, have you also heard of this thing called highway hypnosis? This is a term that we use for when you zone out on a long stretch of highway and just kind of forget the last few miles you drove. Now, this is usually the result of something called automaticity, and it's the idea that your brain kind of goes into this almost autopilot mode. So when we're faced with something repetitive, something like driving on the same stretch of road for a stretch of time, our brain starts to shuffle those low-level activities that don't take a lot of processing power into a place where they just become automatic. And it frees our brains to think about other things, whatever it might be. In other words, your body might be in control of the car, but your brain is kind of in the process of slowly shutting itself down for sleep. So let's say you're trying to power through feeling drowsy. Most experts tell us there are some telltale signs you want to look out for that mark a drowsy driver. First of all, we're talking about frequent yawning and blinking, then tired or droopy eyes, maybe drifting between lanes or hitting the rumble strips on the side of the road, trouble remembering the last few miles, maybe missing your exit, tailgating, and especially trouble maintaining a safe speed or just the same speed throughout your drive. A lot of newer cars are going to have something called lane keep assists. If you find your car pulling you back into the center of your lane, that's probably a good sign to give yourself a rest. If that happens too many times on my car, my dashboard is gonna make a loud noise and then a small little coffee cup will appear that lets me know I should take a break. Don't ask me how I know this. Most of the signs I mentioned could happen for any number of reasons. And if you're actually too tired to drive, your awareness of hitting rumble strips or yawning and blinking probably isn't super keen either. We think the only way to know if you're too tired to drive is if you have to ask yourself if you're too tired to drive. That's it. Listen to your body, and most importantly, make sure you either hit the road well rested or just pull over to rest up. Here's where you might be saying, pull over to sleep, that's illegal in my state, or it's just not safe to do that. We get it. There are a ton of reasons you might want to avoid stopping to rest, but there's no substitute for sleep. So find a safe, well-lit space where you can pull off the road and just catch a few Z's. It might be illegal in some spots, but getting a ticket is worth the trade-off if it means you can safely drive your car. Now, as we said, there are a lot of reasons you might be driving drowsy, and being sleep deprived, that's a big one. If you are feeling sleep deprived, we have a video about steps you can take to get more sleep right here. Thanks for watching, everyone. Sleep well.